Subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to get all the latest updates. One of the exclusive reports brought to you from Mumbai on the mojo.in was the story of the gaps in Mumbai's death toll. We were the first to report that at least 451 more people have died in the city of Mumbai than was previously. This number could in fact be higher because there is a massive data reconciliation exercise that has been ordered by the Maharashtra government. I personally spoke with the Chief Secretary of Maharashtra, who in fact told me that anyone who tries to manipulate data or withhold it would be ruthlessly punished. Now, what we do know at the moment is that this exercise has been completed. The deadline was a 15th midnight. That exercise has been done. We are awaiting an official announcement from the Maharashtra government. But we can confirm to you that the 451 figure we have confirmed through documents, 451 more deaths in the city of Mumbai alone, than has been released in the official data. This is a very serious situation. It's not, by the way, particular to Maharashtra. This is something that has happened in Bengal before. It is a controversy that has happened in Delhi. It is a controversy that has happened in Tamil Nadu, and God knows how many other states this is actually going on in. But focusing on Mumbai today, Priyanka Chaturvedi of the Shiv Sena is with us, Shaina NC of the BJP is with us, and Dr. Rajesh Parikh, one of the foremost medical voices of the city from Jaslok Hospital, is also with us. Priyanka, it is my understanding that the death audits panel was among those that bungled. It looked at casualties that had taken place from comorbidities. Let's say somebody has diabetes and COVID, and then sorted them as diabetes instead of a COVID death. That's one of the reasons for this gap. But it doesn't, at the moment, create confidence among people who will wonder whether they are being lied to about how many people have died. How will you address this sentiment?
Barkha, I disagree with you about people not having faith in the numbers, simply because this is a huge audit exercise where reconciliation has been happening over a period of time. And Mumbai and Maharashtra would perhaps be the only state which has been extremely transparent, even if we are showing high testing numbers, high COVID positive numbers, even high amount of death. We haven't ever tried to hide behind data to be able to hide the number of deaths. So it's a reconciliation exercise which has been initiated by government of Maharashtra, not that we've been asked by the Indian government or ICMR has put any questions on how we've been doing it, but we must look at it in a manner where a lot of cases could have happened which haven't been reconciled by the hospital records and the audit committee report. So we are doing that, and it has come from the chief secretary himself. It is in the idea being that Maharashtra government has been behaving with all transparency, with medical records being put out there, and we will continue to aspire that, whether it's the BMC Twitter handle, whether it is the CMO handle, whether it is the Mahamed handle, they have been putting out very extensive reports, and every information is available online. So reconciliation should not look like in any way where we are trying to hide data or trying to hide figures, because that's not how Maharashtra has functioned from day one.
Do you think, Priyanka, that heads should roll? Because obviously, while I accept the fact that the Chief Secretary has issued a very strong letter, and personally I've been regularly in touch with him, and he's promised action or penalties where there are necessary, do you believe that heads should roll to send out the right signal and to keep the confidence of the people that you do not believe has been shaken?
So, firstly, I disagree about the confidence being shaken. Secondly, we must understand Mumbai saw a high number of deaths where we were mid-April, we were reporting a mortality rate of 7.5%. So there could have been audit issues where the numbers do not match up with what is being reported, or what is being reported does not match up with the final tally. So this reconciliation exercise will happen. And if there is at any point in time, if there has been anyone who's been found slacking from duty, and our records would show that whether it was the dean of hospitals or medical staff who've not been, following the norms that have been set by the Maharashtra government, we have not deterred from taking action, and we'll do that as well. But the idea is to give a very fair, clear picture of where we stand. And I'm telling you one thing about this, Barkha. Once we're past COVID, which I'm hoping it's sooner rather than later, Maharashtra's data gathering and the way we have put out analysis, detailed analysis, would be a lesson for various other states and even perhaps the nation, and could be a case study on how we can manage to ensure and even protect ourselves in the future, going by the data analysis that has happened extensively in Maharashtra.
Okay, Shaina, would you stand with the people of Maharashtra at this point? Because this perception that we don't know the full story, that the released official statistics of the death toll do not tell us the full story, is a debate that all states are having. And at the very least, you've seen from Priyanka that the Maharashtra government is committing itself that even if there is a gap of, let's say, 1,000 deaths, which is what Mr. Fadnavis has gone on record, I know, to allege, the government is saying we won't hide it. The government is saying we'll tell the people the truth. If 1,000 more people have died than we know so far, we will come out and tell the people the truth. Will the BJP stand with the government in this process?
Firstly, whether it's one death, 100 deaths, or 1,000 deaths, that issue being kept aside, the WHO and ICMR have set the guidelines which every state government has to adhere to. Now, having said that, I'd like to say that the government of Maharashtra in its own circular says that the cases should be decided within 7 days. Now, look at the records. You have 560 cases of May, 148 cases of June that have not been decided by the Death Audit Committee. And the Death Audit Committee is set up by the state government. So, isn't that ironical? So if you have somebody who dies of diabetes or COVID, they are choosing to believe what they want to believe and say and hide facts, which is not fair, it is not clear. And the WHO and ICMR have set these guidelines. So this has to be out of the public domain. Barkha, compliments to you for being on the right side. For once, Mojo has highlighted this, and I'd like to say that Devendra Fadnavis, in his press conference,
Ignoring your sarcasm there because I don't.
thank you.
Make,
But you're a friend, so I can afford to say so. But having said that, this Death Audit Committee was set up at every district and municipal corporation level. And there, if you have this kind of an expose, 7 days aside, we're talking about a backlog of 560 odd deaths 2 months ago up until now. So where is the accountability of May, and we're in June? We're mid-June. So 7 days aside, if you still don't know and you still haven't carried out an audit, I think it's a sham. And more importantly, why shouldn't the people of Maharashtra be given dignity of death? And dignity of death with knowing why a patient has died. This is the least one can expect. So it's all very well to say that the chief secretary today said something, but the chief secretary has been caught. And in the fact that Devendra Fadnavis had to have this press conference to highlight these details is testimony to it.
Okay, I just, before I get Rajesh, Parikh in, I do want Priyanka to have an opportunity to respond to what Shaina says. And I think there's a fair question there that even if, Priyanka, you say that, look, we're not going to hide the truth, we're going to come out with the facts as they are, and we are the ones who order the data reconciliation process, it does speak to incompetence, it does speak to delays. We are talking over 3-month period now, right? And we are talking about bungling. And if the bungling is not deliberate, we are talking about incompetence or sloppiness.
So two things. I'm not going to get into the politics of it. Calling it a sham, calling it a data hiding exercise, I'm not going to get into that. And just to put the record straight, Mr. Fadnavis, before he even spoke up, this was an exercise which we were carrying out. And it has been carried out in a phased manner, has been carried out time to time. If you look at the data that is reported every day, we also tell you the dates where the earlier deaths are coming from which date to what date. Now, having said that, I think in my beginning comment also had said that mid-April saw a high number of deaths happening. Lots of tests were happening. The reports were coming later. We were following some guidelines which were set by ICMR and WHO. So when we are saying that as far as we are concerned, we want to reconcile. There are lots of unknown numbers which show in the India figures. We want to, we don't know the numbers right now. Again, accusing us, I think it's unnecessary at this point when we are all fighting a pandemic.
But Priyanka, I agree with you that the politics right now, party politics should be kept aside. But as a Mumbaikar, are you disturbed by this gap?
No, I can tell you one thing for a fact, Barkha. I would be disturbed with the fact that there are bodies which are being cremated or being buried without it being accounted for. I would be worried of the fact that while we are trying to hide data, we are also lying to the people of the state.
Yeah.
I will not be worried about this fact simply because reconciliation does not in any way mean that there was a deliberate attempt to fudge numbers. If there was any attempt from Maharashtra to fudge numbers, we wouldn't have been showing high numbers from day one. So I think it is a very ridiculous, unfounded charge that's coming our way. And honestly, when you handle a pandemic of this proportion, reconciliation keeps happening, whether it is Delhi, whether it is West Bengal, whether it's Tamil Nadu, whether it is Gujarat at this point in time. Why should I leave out Madhya Pradesh also in this process? So there have been, bungling is when you are cremating, burying people and not maintaining those records. Bungling is not when you're reconciling records.
Okay. Dr. Parikh, Shaina, I know, give me a second. Shaina, just 1 second. I'll get Rajesh Parikh and then I'll come to you right after that. Rajesh Parikh, as a doctor, as a medical professional, how do you make sense of these numbers? Data reconciliation is happening, but I do think it's worrying. One, that the death audits panel was classifying deaths in violation of ICMR and WHO guidelines. Two, we have feedback from officials in the Maharashtra government that another reason for the gap is that when patients were being brought in dead to hospitals, they were being kept for 24 hours at the mortuary and not being swabbed, but they were being buried or cremated with COVID protocols. So, which is how the data has now been reconciled. But this is another huge reason for the gap that we're seeing, Dr. Parikh.
All right. So, Barkha, I am slightly concerned, and I'm emphasizing slightly, and not worried about this, because data reconciliation is not just a euphemism, it's a fact. It happens in every epidemic and pandemic. And over the past 100 years, and including in the current pandemic, it has occurred recurrently. Things move so fast that it is a big challenge to keep track of numbers. Mm-hmm. And I'll just give you an illustration. While Priyanka was talking, I managed to find a slide from our talk. Let me see if I can get it on and if you can see it clearly. Yeah. Okay, if this is clear, there may be reflections. Let me try and study it a bit. So, this is from our book on the coronavirus. Yeah. And please pardon the reflections in it. No problem. But you will see a picture which looks familiar today. Mm-hmm. Okay. This picture is 101 years old. Okay, it's people during the flu pandemic 100 years ago, herded together. And at that time, the estimate was that maybe around 40-50 million people died in that pandemic. Mm-hmm. Current estimates, those numbers have been going up over the last 100 years. And now there has been a renewed interest in those numbers. And now they've done autopsies and all kinds of things. And the numbers are closer to 100 million. That's twice the number. That is data reconciliation for you. And 100 million people out of a global population, which was just a little larger than the population of India today, would in today's terms mean that the entire populations of Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai, Kolkata, Bengaluru wiped out, not one human being left. So that was the degree of death at that time. Now one might argue and say, well, they didn't have precise methods of calculating there, they didn't have computer methods and all of that. Let me just show you another slide is what happened in the pandemic. And I hope the reflections don't get in the way. And maybe they obscure me, but that's fine. Mm-hmm. So, there were 3 waves in that flu. The first one that you see, and let me see if I can get a pencil there to point it out to you. It's getting a little dicey. Yeah, that little tiny wave here. Okay. Now, this is where we are today. Okay. We are here. There was a second wave and there was a third wave. Yeah. And the second wave was far. You're familiar with the history of this pandemic. Yeah. And the third one, not as bad as the second one, but certainly more than the first one. Now, what contributed to that second wave? And there are lots of theories, but what is relevant to us, that there was a lot of secrecy. There was a lot of secrecy at the first wave because it was the time of World War I, and wartime secrecy rules were in operation. And those secrecy rules permitted governments, and maybe justifiably, because there was a world war going on, and they didn't want to demoralize the soldiers, and they didn't reveal those the right numbers then. How would you apply that today? How would you apply that secrecy today? Because not secrecy. Yes, I wouldn't apply. But we don't want to be secret. No, so that's what I was coming to. I wouldn't hold any sinister motives in my mind whatsoever to the discrepancy. It is completely understandable. Besides, I'm sure that the people who are in government are intelligent people. It would be absurd, it would be childlike to hide these numbers,
For
because deaths are not something that one can hide at all. At the end of the day, every death gets numbered, and sooner or later the deaths are apparent. But in the current pandemic, Barkha, this has happened in the United States where there have been discrepancy in numbers. This happened in China. In one day there was a peak and they realized that the criteria had changed. So this is happening across the world. I mean, when you're in a war and people are dying, it's not very easy to keep a minute by minute track of injuries and deaths. And so reconciliation does occur. And I would be understanding and focused on preventing the second wave and dealing with the first wave, rather than getting into the polemics of, why there are 400 unaccounted deaths for. I don't think anybody would intentionally not account for a death.
okay, I do have cross questions on that, but I'll let Shaina come in. Shaina, go ahead.
No, I take what doctor is saying in good spirit, and I know that he's an expert on the subject, so I'm not going to contradict him at all. But doctor, how would you account for 500 missing deaths? Now, isn't that unpardonable in a day and time where we have technology? You talk about the Spanish flu, but at that time we didn't have systems in place. Today you have the best of technology and the administrative systems on the ball. You have the ICMR and the WHO setting the guidelines. This death audit committee is set up by the state government at every district level, at every municipal corporation. And then you have 500 missing deaths in Mumbai. Isn't that worrying?
Yeah.
Forget the cause of death being one aspect of this debate.
Yeah.
The cause of whether one is dying of COVID or diabetes and whether there is a discrepancy or whether the parameters were right or wrong and all of that we can go into. But missing deaths, is that not worrying?
I can
may I answer?
Rajesh, if I can add just a small question and then I'll come to Rajesh and then Priyanka. I think the point is, sir, when you talk about the Spanish influenza, we're talking about a very different time. We're also talking about a time when democracies were not institutionalized. Uddhav Thackeray, as chief minister, has said that he will talk to the people every day. He has a daily engagement with people every day, and in that compact between citizen and government is an expectation that we as people will be told the truth, right? Which is why I think the state government now is ordering the reconciliation process. Otherwise, they could have just looked the other way. That means we should not undermine, sir, with respect, the demand for accurate and truthful data. This is history being recorded. And if you were one of those 451 people today who could have possibly been invisible, whose death would not be recorded, I don't think you would feel so casually about it.
All right. So let me clarify, because you seem to imply that I'm being casual about deaths. I am not being casual about deaths, Parikh. I am being casual about not being able to reconcile numbers.
Okay.
I'm being casual about mathematics, not about human suffering or human death. You know me well enough to know that I would, as a human being and as a doctor, be as concerned as you or anybody else about a death occurring. I'm trying to see it in perspective. I think it's a strength of our democracy that you can ask these questions and we have a right to expect answers.
Yeah.
And I think they're giving us answers. All I'm saying is we shouldn't jump the gun, and before somebody has given us an answer, after reconciling these numbers, attribute motives in our mind. Because to my mind, it would be an absurd exercise. I mean, it's like committing a crime knowing 101% sure that you're going to be caught tomorrow. And I don't think our bureaucrats, our government would do.
Okay, let me bring in Priyanka on this. Priyanka, go ahead.
So, Barkha, I'll just like to clarify one thing. These deaths are not missing, firstly. These deaths have been recorded. The controversy is something which we are using the word, I wouldn't even call it controversy. Okay. The question is, they died COVID deaths. So these are not missing deaths. You are talking about statistics which are showing lower number of COVID deaths, those who died with COVID positive reports. Right. So firstly, this clarification is important because I don't want this perception being built that we are not even recording deaths. Nope. Deaths have been recorded, but those deaths do not show COVID as the reason for death. And that is when, if they are dying because of comorbidities and they have been assigned death due to diabetes, etc., they can be very easily reconciled over again. Once you have a death record, what you need to do is check whether their COVID reports had come in and what were their reports. there could be a delay in the report after their death. There could have been a delay in acknowledging that report by the hospital data with the central data. So this entire exercise of saying that deaths are only missing is an incorrect statement to make, and that creates unnecessary fear in the minds of the people, which is not needed at this point in time. Deaths are being recorded, but are they because of COVID related is something that we are reconciling. I think that is what should be the discussion point.
I think that's an important point that you say that it's not that people are dying and nobody has recorded them as deaths. It's the debate is over whether they are COVID deaths or non-COVID deaths. But Priyanka, before Shaina responds to that, that is also a very political question today in this country. It should not be, but unfortunately it has become one, where chief ministers are being measured almost, their governments, the governance, the efficiency is being measured on how they're managing the COVID numbers. Therefore, there is a perception that these deaths were put in the category of non-COVID so that the Maharashtra government could look like it has managed the pandemic better than it is. It's a political question, but that's the reality of the times we live in. Priyanka.
Barkha, considering that you yourself are smiling while asking that question, especially asking about the chief minister wanting to do something like this, that in itself holds an answer. So my counter question would be that as far as Maharashtra is concerned, have you seen any numbers that we've hidden? When our opposition keeps talking about WHO and ICMR guidelines, I would want to ask them, has all the states in India followed the ICMR and WHO guidelines of having more tests in our country or having more tests in their state? So these ridiculous charges at this point in time do not befit the opposition party, and we would be happy to cooperate and work along with them as long as they do not try to make something political when none exists. This is an issue of reconciliation. There's no hiding of data. And it's impossible in the day and times that we live in. There are citizen journalists who record videos and put it out there. So there is just no question. And Maharashtra has been transparent from day one. And we will continue to maintain that level of transparency, which will be a record setter whenever history is recorded of the pandemic and how it was handled. When WHO, UNICEF all record Maharashtra's capabilities of being able to handle pandemic in the worst of times, in the worst of circumstances, I think history will also judge us for being absolutely transparent in our conduct and our intent.
Okay, Shaina, I think there's also a fair question there.
Yeah.
There are also states like Gujarat, which many experts believe are under testing and therefore not following the same guidelines that you want the Maharashtra government to apply. That's the first question. The second quote I want to give you is from an interview I did with Aditya Thackeray, where he said that actually the central BJP, the Modi government, the Prime Minister is cooperating very well with the Chief Minister. It is only the Maharashtra BJP that is playing politics. It is only Mr. Fadnavis that is playing politics. The Shiv Sena would say, Shaina, that your party is playing politics over these bodies that are now being accounted for as COVID deaths.
So how do you say our question is unnecessary? It would be unnecessary if you didn't have the facts in the public domain. Now, the death audit committee is given up to 7 days. Forget 7 days, 14 days, 21 days. We have gone into month after month. So now how does that become an unnecessary question? Nobody is saying that you do not have the right to know. Yes, everyone has the right to know. Reconciliation of the death, whether it is a COVID or non-COVID, is secondary. But if you don't even have basic access to information which a death audit committee has to question, then how does it become an unnecessary question? Isn't the role of the opposition to have answers? Tomorrow it could be your loved one or mine or anybody at all. The fact is that if a loss of life and if there is a missing death where they haven't even determined whether the body is in the mortuary or whether it's in the hospital morgue or where it is, aren't these serious questions, Barkha? And I take your question absolutely, whether it's Maharashtra, Gujarat, Rajasthan, any state, there has to be a due process and you have to adhere to ICMR guidelines. And this is not about 7 days, giving the benefit of doubt that it took you 15 days or even if it took you a month. We've gone into the second and the third month. We're seeking accountability for deaths which took place 2 months ago. So I don't think this is an unnecessary question. It's a very serious question that requires an answer and not a rebuttal.
Okay, last comments from all. Rajesh, Parikh, my question to you would be this. The death audits panel is only one part of this story, right? We are seeing in Bombay, in Delhi, in Chennai, right? In Ahmedabad, in different ways, the medical infrastructure unable to cope with what is happening. We are seeing public hospitals carry the cross for this more than private hospitals. I say that to you, even though you work at a private hospital. Uh, the question that would arise is, were there systems put in place when this lockdown was imposed, causing such economic hardship to so many millions of people? One of the systems that had to be put in place was, how do you count and classify your dead? When a patient is brought in dead, what is the test that you will do? Should it lie there for 24 hours, or should it be, tested right away? We have all of these gaping holes in our system. That system by no means is particular only to Maharashtra. This is something all cities are grappling with right now. Does it not concern you that our systems have not worked efficiently as they should have?
Of course, it concerns me. You, as a reporter of integrity, have every right to ask disturbing and troubling questions. The opposition, regardless of what that opposition is, in some other states, the Congress may be in opposition. It is the duty of the opposition to confront whichever government is in power in a democracy and ask troublesome questions. All I'm saying that in the crisis that we are in, we should not ascribe motives before we get all the data in, before we get all the answer in. And let me give you an example, Barkha. And, we've all been talking of history. We are making history right now, and how will, the future judge us today. But if you don't mind my being a little personal, you are a war hero, okay? I remember young Barkha at Kargil, as brave as any of the soldiers, standing there and reporting on that war. Now imagine that war being fought on multiple fronts today in our country. Now, while you were there, Barkha, if you were questioning that, India claims that there were 100 deaths, but I know there were 150 because somebody else told me there were 150. If during the time of war, we ourselves are in disarray, please keep in mind the difference. Of course, there is a difference. My analogies are not perfect, but we are dealing with an invisible enemy. That is the problem. We are dealing with an enemy which is tiny, has no face, and in a macabre way has been orchestrating an attack on all fronts.
Okay.
I think that's a time when we all need to stand united. We need to understand that things will not run perfectly. We can never be perfectly prepared for that. And what has happened? Do you think that, you're privy to a lot of more information than I am. Things didn't go perfectly during Kargil. A lot of things went wrong. There were defense procurement issues and all of that. We don't talk about that today because we won the war. Okay, and we focused on the war and we won it.
Right.
And go back to another war which we are debating even today. 50 years later, we are debating Neville Maxwell and whether India was the aggressor or China was the aggressor in 62. And the Chinese came in wave upon us. And then we lost that war and we are analyzing it as we should. But I believe, Barkha, there is a time for analysis. When we are in a war situation, extensive analysis, as the cliche says, leads to paralysis. And we cannot afford to get paralyzed. The virus is quietly, in a very efficient, morbidly efficient and organized way, going about its work. And it's sad that if we keep fighting amongst ourselves instead of fighting the virus, if we are not focused, of course mistakes will be made. We all will make mistakes, but let us work together towards a solution. To conclude, as T.S. Eliot said, indeed there will be time, for days on hands to put questions, to lift and put questions on your plate. There will be a time for a lot of questions, but I don't feel that beyond a certain point, there are reasonable questions we can ask today, but I don't think beyond a point until we have the data in and we have the...
Okay, so you don't feel this is the...
Assume that, we shouldn't be judge, jury, questioner, everything all at once. We should give people the opportunity to answer.
Okay.
And be a little compassionate in our approach that there will be mistakes, but everybody is doing their best that they can. And let the government come back with reconciliation. And there will be enough time to analyze and question all these numbers, which we should undoubtedly. I just think it's a bit premature right now.
Okay, I'll just let Shaina come in with 30 seconds and Priyanka can close this for us. Shaina, go ahead.
I don't think there's very much more to say. Yes, we are all focused on fighting this invisible terrorist, and that is the only agenda. But if checks and balances have to be maintained, that is the role of the opposition too. And the reason why the leader of opposition, Devendra Fadnavis, met with Uddhav Thackeray and raised some serious questions, one of which was obviously if there is no accountability of 950 lives 2 months down, That is a serious question, and it's not unnecessary in my opinion.
Okay. Priyanka, what is the lesson or the learning? Let's say mistakes are made. Every government has to learn, adapt, and not make that mistake again, right? Hopefully. Every person, why every government? As journalists, as politicians, as doctors, we all learn from our mistakes. What is the learning for the government at this point, and when can we expect the government to come on record? Because right now, these are journalistic stories, one by me, one in the Indian Express today. When can we have a high level official come out and talk to the people and say, this is what our data tells us?
No, so firstly, I must say one thing, and I must put it on record. Anyone from the opposition or from journalism wanting to come and question us, we're absolutely open to questions. But doubting our, integrity and intention, I think, is extremely unfortunate in the circumstances that we are battling. Every positive contribution that has come from the opposition has been taken in the right spirit and has been worked upon. I do not remember a single time where Mr. Devendra Fadnavis would have sought a meeting with the chief minister and he wouldn't have got it, or whatever his issues were not being resolved. But this entire idea of running to the governor and writing letters which ascribe a political motive is unfortunate. So questions would be answered, course correction would be done, because we must understand we are all fighting an unknown battle, something that of proportions that nobody in the world understands and knows, and there's absolutely room for correction and room for suggestions, which we will be open to. And if there are any deliberate attempts to hide something or deliberate attempts to not do something or not report something, will be adhered to in the strictest manner possible. That is all I can assure you. But I can again reassure the people of Maharashtra that the government stands with you in all the expectations that you have of us in terms of transparency and integrity, and we will continue to do so with full honor and full faith in our people and in our state.
Okay, I will just leave it there with just a final little thought from me, which is that, people often say, how do we counter this or how do we counter this? The best way to deal with rumor, panic, or even what you believe is fake news is more information, more information, more information. So the more information there is, the better it is, the less panic there is. The less information there is, the more people speculate. That is as true for Ladakh as it is true for Mumbai. People want a government that talks to people, whether it's the BJP in Delhi or the Shiv Sena in Mumbai. I think we can all agree with that. Shaina, Priyanka, Dr. Parikh, pleasure as always having all of you. Thank you so much.